I have no idea of the story that anybody hears that I tell. And very often people say things to me and I think, did I tell that story? Because that's the beauty of it. But what happens to people's minds, the way that people are able to focus, to rest their mind, the way their bodies resonate, the way people imagine, have associations, and feel this kind of vast, unconditional sense, allows for them to be less self-fixed. And so they can have a sense of communal appreciation or open up that place where you experience interdependence, which is natural to thousands of years of human beings before we took off on our little balloon of self-involvement and greed, which I don't say with anger, I say with sorrow. But I think it just opens up that place where you feel. You can feel even before you have a story about what you're feeling. Maybe when you finish the story, you'll say, oh, that means such and such. But in the listening of it, you're actually experiencing a very direct, complex of emotions, which is closer to reality. And when you look to someone else, you might feel connected to them, even if they're your enemy. Or, for instance, I've worked in schools where kids have been beating each other up in the schoolyards. And then they're listening together. And, stories lean on stories. So you hear a story and it's very easy to ask somebody, what did that remind you of in your own life? I never ask people to interpret or to come up with a lesson. But what does that remind you of? And then someone will tell a story, and someone else who might the day before have thought about shooting you is actually interested. Will say, oh, I didn't know that. Well, yeah, that reminds me of something. And so, I worked once for Common Ground in the east of Nepal, northeast of Nepal, in Chitwan, with ex-combatants after the Civil War and girls who had been slaves, also soldiers and so on, and kid advocates. And they were all together in this crazy hotel that we were in. And afterwards, the director of Search said, so what's the common ground? And he had a blackboard in which he wanted to write down all the things that came up that were like common themes in the stories. And there were things like that, of course, but what I felt and said to him at that moment was, well, I think the common ground is that they were listening to the same story, imagining it totally differently. And the common ground is they each have their own story. It's not that they have the same things. It's that diversity is what we have in common. And we all have this territory that opens inside of us that, like the Maori say, from the beginningless, if you can't find a connection in history, you can't find a connection in mythic life. Everyone is connected before the four winds or at the four winds in the time of Dipole. Everybody's connected.